What is up guys, Taiki here, and in this video I'll be going over why I'm personally GIGA-LONG AVAX but hold 0 JOE or YAK tokens. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section below. None of this is financial advice, so let's get started. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. This is not a bearish JOE or YAK video. In fact, I really like them as DeFi blue chips in the Avalanche ecosystem. I've been covering Avalanche for over a month now, and I've constantly said like, hey, JOE and YAK, I like them. However, this is more about risk management, and this is why I don't hold any right now. To better understand like why I'm so conservative when it comes to, I guess, like deploying capital, let me just go over like my system and what's worked out well for me in the past. My channel focuses on a few things, right? And I've been doing this for, for essentially all of this year. First I do the damn research, build a thesis, build a conviction, deploy capital, and play out the thesis, right? It's pretty simple really, but I guess to make it in crypto, there's so much edge to be had that if you just spend a lot of time doing research and just have a plan, generally it works out. This was the case for me back in April when I started covering the Polygon ecosystem, okay? I just knew, okay, there's gonna be billions flowing in, let's just farm the hell out of the Matic token, and hey, it went up. And back in July, I said, okay, the next rotation is gonna be to Terra, because Terra is really underrated, it's overlooked, and it's just an 80% dump. And then over a month ago, I said, okay, Avalanche is the place to be because, hey, Benki, a money market is launching, and a money market is super bullish for ecosystems, right? So I said, yeah, like August 10th, I said, humble farmers be interested. And, I've been covering Avalanche for over a month now. And I guess the reason I knew this, and I guess at this point, it's pretty obvious, because of these DeFi incentive programs, right? Generally, like these like random blockchains, right? They build it out, but there's no one there. So to incentivize people to bridge their liquidity from, I guess, Ethereum to Avalanche, they're like, okay, like here's a DeFi incentive program. Like we'll just like print money. We'll just give you all the tokens. Just take it. Just use our ecosystem, and we'll just give you money, right? So I mean, it obviously works. It worked for Polygon, it worked for Avalanche, and now it's like working for every other ecosystem. But if you just pay the users will come, right? You just follow the yield. That's what I say. I'm not an ecosystem maxi. I'm a yield maxi. And like I mentioned, August 16th, Benki launched, and bam, 200 million to almost 3 billion in TVL in like essentially a month, right? Pretty sick. So I guess for me, like my methodology is I focus more on the process instead of the results, because like sure, there's been like a bunch of apes that's outperforming, right? But even though I don't take on that much risk, I still outperform the majority of the markets, and that's because I do the research and I have an open mind, right? I'm not like a maxi of any particular chain or whatever. So that being said, now that you understand my research process and how I think, let's just go over, okay, like why am I GIGA-LONG AVAX but not these higher beta plays like JOE or YAK? Okay, so like I mentioned, I knew that Avalanche was going to be a plus EV play back in August, right? Positive expected value because of these liquidity mining programs. And the reason I knew that was because I was essentially like a crazy farmer on Polygon. And the reason Polygon blew up was because of these liquidity mining programs. Back then, April 28th was the day here, they launched a $100 million fund to support DeFi adoption, right? So they just paid you to be in Polygon. And this was April 28th, the price of Matic was at 77 cents, and it peaked at like roughly $2.70. So since they announced the program, it like 4x essentially. Okay, so obviously Avalanche Rush, it's bigger, it's more exciting, and it's happening like next week actually. And keep in mind that it's not $180 million, right? Because to be more precise, they're allocating 10 million tokens, right? 10 million AVAX tokens for this. So at current prices, it's actually a $650 million program, right? So it's much bigger, and it kind of depends on like the price of AVAX to like understand how valuable this program is. So if you make comparisons on I guess creating parallels between the Polygon ecosystem and the Avalanche ecosystem, Matic is a gas token, so is AVAX. JOE is like QuickSwap, which is like the #1 exchange. YAK, there's no real comparison because Polygon didn't really have its own native auto compounder or yield aggregator. So what we can look at is QuickSwap, right? Like what happened to the price of QuickSwap when Matic essentially went from like 70 cents to $2.70 in a span of a month? Well, the data I always look at is, okay, when did QuickSwap peak, right? Because QuickSwap was the most exciting thing in the Polygon ecosystem in like mid-April. If you go back to my videos back in April, I was like, okay, like I'm loading up on Quick, and I took profits and I rotated it into Matic. So what's important here is that even though let's let's actually stick to the data. April 30th was when QuickSwap peaked at roughly like $1,500. But at April 30th, the price of Matic wasn't really doing anything. It was like 80 cents, right? So even though QuickSwap 10x'd in a week, Matic was just keeping calm, right? Kind of interesting. But when did Matic actually peak, right? Matic peaked the token on May 18th. It says 245 because I think that was a closing price, but at the actual top, I think it was like $2.70, right? So I find it interesting that the native gas token peaked 3 weeks after the native farm tokens have peaked, right? April 30th and May 18th, right? Pretty interesting. So, like, what can we take away from this? Like, obviously, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. And even though it's only one data point, there's like not that much data to look at when you're thinking about like, should I buy AVAX, should I buy JOE, should I buy YAK, should I buy these other farm tokens or like native tokens? And my thesis is that at some point, people have made so much money from JOE and YAK and like these other altcoins that people will just begin dumping native tokens for the native gas token as a flight to safety, right? I think that's essentially what's happened here, where people made a bunch of money on Quick, and then to take profits, they rotated back to Bitcoin, ETH, stablecoins, and Matic, right? Because they're safer bets, because there's higher market cap. So the reason I don't hold any JOE or YAK isn't because I don't think it'll outperform. Actually, if you held a gun to my head and asked me, like, in the next week, do you think JOE or YAK will outperform AVAX? I would say yes, right? But there is a non-zero chance that history does repeat. And AVAX leaves everything in the dust, right? There is a tiny % chance that JOE and YAK is already topped, and AVAX will just take over the market and just gigasend to like whatever price, right? That people are like random price targets that people are throwing out. And to be honest, like the reason I'm still bullish JOE and YAK is because if you look at the the net inflows to the Avalanche ecosystem, like the past week has been like super green, right? There's like a bunch of people bridging to the Avalanche ecosystem, and mathematically, if there are more people bridging to Avalanche, like what are they buying, right? They're buying AVAX, JOE, and YAK most likely, and like other tokens, I guess, as well. So as long as this trend keeps up, I don't think the Avalanche ecosystem will, I guess, like dump. I mean, in the short term, it could, obviously, depending on the health of Bitcoin or whatever. But on a macro scale, right? I mean, the bridging data is like the most reliable data that I can point to like, I guess, gauge the health of the ecosystem. But let's just think about the probabilities, right? Of like AVAX leaving everything in the dust. Is it a 10% chance, 20% chance, 30% chance? I simply do not know. I mean, no one knows, right? However, I do know that it's a non-zero chance that this is possible. And the reason I hold a bunch of AVAX, but not JOE or YAK, is because I don't want the max pain scenario where my thesis was right, but I allocated capital incorrectly, right? This meaning that, let's say you buy a bunch of JOE because, you're super bullish and your thesis is right. Everyone is like flocking to the Avalanche ecosystem because of these liquidity mining programs. However, the max pain scenario is where everyone loads up on JOE, but AVAX just gigasends, right? It like history repeats, right? QuickSwap peaked 3 weeks before Avalanche. Well, what if JOE peaks 3 weeks before Avalanche? What happens then, right? And I feel like that's one of the most hurtful things that could happen is like, I had this thesis, I deployed capital, and the thesis was right, but I just deployed capital incorrectly. So, even though I don't think that, the chance of this happening is that likely, I just don't want the max pain scenario to happen, right? Because think about probabilities, right? Let's say it's like a 20% chance this happens, right? So 80% of the time, you make more money holding JOE or YAK, right? And the Avalanche, I mean, people holding AVAX will still make money, but less money than, I guess, the more risk seekers. But 20% of the time, like people YOLOing into JOE and YAK, they're going to get wrecked, right? They're just going to get wrecked. And people holding AVAX are going to be massively rewarded. So I'm just like weighing the probabilities, right? Weighing the possibilities. And this is all about expected value, right? This is like how I manage my portfolio. This is how I manage my farms. This is how I think about crypto, DeFi, farming, etc. And that being said, thank you guys for watching. I do want to shout out, my private Discord has reached 400 members in like 10 days. So I really want to thank you guys for the support, and I'm working my ass off like night and day to provide as much alpha as I can. So if you want more, I guess, transparency on like how I'm allocating capital, how much money I actually have into AVAX, and where else I'm farming, right? Because I'm not just on AVAX, I'm farming on the other ecosystems as well. Check out the private Discord. I don't talk about some things on the public channel because some things are lower market cap, and I don't want to be seen as like pumping and dumping stuff. Generally, like people that are going to be in the Discord are going to be more well aware about like, okay, like risk, farms, etc. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Let me know what your thoughts are. Like, am I being too conservative? Maybe, but you know, I'm just like taking risk into account. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one and have fun farming out there.